Sometimes the person who holds you the closest is the one who's quietly taking everything away. I met her in a Soapy massage room in Pattaya. She smelled like coconut and laughed like she knew me already. I thought I'd found comfort, even healing. But what I found was a slow unraveling of who I was. No scams, no threats, just gentle control disguised as devotion. I didn't lose money. I lost the ability to say where my life ended and hers began. If you've ever given too much to someone too fast, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. I'd never believed in magic until I met Noon in that steamy room on Walking Street. The Soapy massage parlor wasn't what you'd expect. No neon lights screaming desperation, just a quiet doorway with bamboo curtains and the sound of water running somewhere deep inside. I'd been in Pattaya for 3 weeks, trying to figure out what retirement looked like for a divorced accountant from Ohio. Every night felt the same until I heard her laugh cutting through the steam, like a bell nobody else could hear. First time, she asked, not like the others who sized up my wallet before my face. Her English was soft, careful, like she was offering me something fragile. I nodded, suddenly feeling foolish in my tourist shorts and faded polo shirt. "Don't worry, I take care of you." The way she said take care made my chest tighten. Nobody had said that to me in years. The massage wasn't what I expected either. She moved like she was painting something precious, her hands gentle but confident. We talked. About nothing. About everything. She told me her name meant to, like the sun at its highest point. "When everything is clear," she said, soaping my back with movements that felt more like prayer than service. No shadows, just light. I felt something shift inside me. Something I thought had died with my marriage. When it was over, I reached for my wallet. She pressed my hand down gently. "Not tonight," she whispered, walking me to the door with a towel wrapped around her shoulders like a shawl. "Come back when you miss me." The way she said it, not if, but when, made me feel chosen. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like someone had picked me out of a crowd. I walked back to my hotel room that night, thinking about her laugh, her careful English, the way she'd said my name like she was trying it on for size. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles and realized I was already planning tomorrow, already missing her. She'd been right about that, too. I went back the next day, and the next. Each time she greeted me like I was expected, like she'd been waiting. "Hello, Matthew," she'd say. And my name sounded different in her mouth, softer, more important somehow. The other girls would glance over with knowing smiles, but Noon never seemed embarrassed. She moved through that place like she owned it, confident and untouchable. "You don't pay anymore," she told me on the 4th visit, pressing my money back into my palm. "You're not like the others." I wanted to ask what she meant, but the way she looked at me, really looked like she was seeing something worth keeping, made me forget the question. Instead, I let her soap away 3 years of loneliness, one gentle touch at a time. We started meeting outside after her shifts. Night markets where she'd order for both of us, her hand light on my arm as she guided me through crowds of tourists and locals. Beach walks where she'd collect shells and drop them into my shirt pocket. For luck, she'd say, but I felt lucky just watching her move. She asked about my life back home, my divorce, my empty house in Cleveland. I found myself telling her things I'd never told anyone. "You have sad eyes," she said one evening as we shared sometown at a street cart. "But when you smile, they change, like the sun coming out." I realized I'd been smiling more in 2 weeks than I had all year. She had this way of listening that made me feel heard, not just tolerated. When I asked about her family, her past, she'd deflect with questions about me. "I want to imagine it. Tell me more about Matthew." I liked being her focus. After years of feeling invisible in my own marriage, having someone hang on my words felt intoxicating. She'd laugh at my terrible jokes, ask me to repeat stories she'd already heard, touch my hand when I got quiet. "You're good man," she'd say in that careful English. I believing her. Stalking believed me I might be worth something after all. "I could cook for you," she said one evening as we walked past my hotel. We'd stopped under a street lamp, and the light caught the gold in her hair. "Make sure you don't get lonely?" It wasn't a demand or even really a request, just an offer floating between us like smoke. The idea of waking up to someone who wanted to take care of me felt like stepping into sunlight after years in a cave. "You'd want to do that?" I asked, and she smiled that smile that made me forget I'd ever been anyone else. "I want to take care of Matthew," she said simply. "Matthew is good to me. I want to be good to Matthew." The logic was so clean, so pure. Of course she'd want to move in, of course I'd want her to. Why had I even hesitated? The next day, I extended my hotel stay indefinitely, and we found a small apartment near the beach. Nothing fancy, but it had a kitchen where she could cook and a balcony where we could watch the sunset. She moved in with a single backpack and immediately began rearranging everything. "This is better here," she'd say, moving my books to make room for her oils and lotions. "More comfortable like this?" I bought her things: a fan for the bedroom because she got hot at night, soft towels because she loved long showers, ingredients for the Thai dishes she'd make while humming songs I didn't recognize. Watching her move through our space felt like watching someone color in a black and white photograph. Everything became more vivid, more alive. "You happy?" she'd ask while massaging coconut oil into my shoulders, and I'd nod because I was. Happier than I'd been in years. I loved coming home to the smell of lemongrass and garlic, to her voice calling, "Matthew," from the kitchen. I loved having someone care whether I'd eaten, whether I slept well, whether I was taking my blood pressure medication. After 3 years of rattling around an empty house, being needed felt like finding religion. I stopped checking my phone. Not consciously. It just started feeling less important. When my brother texted asking how I was doing, I'd think about responding and then get distracted by noon asking if I wanted green curry or pad thai for dinner. When my few friends from back home sent pictures of their grandkids or golf games, I'd stare at the screen, feeling like I was looking at someone else's life through thick glass. "Why waste time on people who never check on you?" Noon said one evening, curled against my side as we watched Thai soap operas I didn't understand. "They don't care about Matthew. I care about Matthew." Her logic was airtight. They had my number. If they really cared, they'd call more often, right? I let the texts pile up unanswered and felt lighter somehow, unanchored from obligations that had never really fulfilled me anyway. She started making suggestions about my clothes. "This shirt is too old," she'd say, fingering the fabric of my favorite polo. "Makes you look tired. Try this one." The shirt she'd picked out was younger, brighter. When I wore it, people smiled at me differently. "See," she'd say, straightening the collar. "Much better. Matthew looks handsome." I started letting her choose my outfits, my restaurants, my activities. She had better taste than I did, better instincts. One morning I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the man looking back. Not because I looked bad. I looked better than I had in years. Tanned, relaxed, wearing clothes that actually fit. But something in my eyes seemed different, distant, like I was looking at myself from very far away. "Is this mine anymore?" I whispered to my reflection, then immediately felt guilty for the thought. Nun knocked on the bathroom door. "Matthew, you okay?" Her concern was immediate, genuine. I opened the door and she studied my face with those careful eyes. "You look worried. What's wrong?" I almost told her about the mirror, about feeling like a stranger to myself. Instead, I kissed her forehead and said nothing. She smiled and everything felt normal again. Safe, like I was exactly where I belonged. I woke up to the smell of jasmine and the sound of voices in the living room. Noon was arranging flowers in glass bowls, wearing a white dress I'd never seen before. "Surprise," she said when she saw me, her smile so bright it hurt to look at directly. "Today is blessing day." 3 women from the massage parlor were setting up food on our small table, chattering in Thai and shooting me knowing looks. "Blessing day?" I asked, suddenly aware I was in my underwear and there were strangers in our apartment. Noon handed me clothes, nice ones pressed and laid out like I was going to a job interview. "For good luck," she explained. "My friends want to bless our happiness. Very traditional, very special." I wanted to ask more questions, but the women were already laughing and pointing at me, and Noon was pushing me toward the bedroom. To change? An hour later, I was sitting cross-legged on our floor while a monk I'd never met chanted over us in Pali. Noon knelt beside me in her white dress, hands pressed together in prayer, looking serene and untouchable. One of her friends slipped a gold ring onto my finger while someone else took photos. "Not real marriage," Noon whispered in my ear. "Just for luck. For blessing." The monk smiled and nodded, sprinkling flower petals over our heads. Everyone clapped. Someone opened a bottle of Thai whiskey. Noon's friends posted photos on their phones immediately, tagging me in pictures I didn't remember agreeing to. "So handsome couple," they kept saying. and Noon would beam and squeeze my hand. I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body, playing a role in someone else's play. The next morning, my neighbor knocked on the door to congratulate me on my beautiful wife. I laughed it off, started to correct him, then stopped. Why did it matter what he called us? We were happy, we lived together, we took care of each other. What was wrong with being called her husband? The word felt strange in my mouth, but not unpleasant, like trying on clothes that were almost the right size. Married life settled into a rhythm that felt both natural and slightly suffocating. Noon would wake before me, make coffee the I liked it, and bring it to me in bed with a kiss on my forehead. She'd plan our day, market in the morning, beach in the afternoon, dinner at home while we watched movies on her laptop. When I suggested meeting other expats for drinks or taking a day trip alone, she'd get this worried look. "You don't need them," she'd say, running her fingers through my hair. "They just want to drink and complain about their wives. You have me, I take care of you." Her logic was sound. Why did I need other people when I had someone who actually wanted to spend time with me? The expat bars were full of bitter men reliving their glory days anyway. Noon was right. I was better off with her. When I got food poisoning from bad street meat, she cancelled the doctor's appointment I'd made. "You don't need hospital," she said, bringing me soup and medicine she'd bought from a pharmacy. "I take care of you. I know what you need." She did know. She nursed me back to health in 3 days, barely leaving my side, feeding me rice porridge and making me drink electrolyte solution until I felt human. My phone stopped buzzing with texts from back home. My Facebook feed became dominated by Noon's posts, pictures of us at dinner on the beach, sleeping on the couch with her head on my shoulder. Friends from Ohio would like them and comment, "You look happy," and I'd feel proud that they could see how well I was doing, how loved I was, how different my life had become. But sometimes, late at night when Noon was in the shower, I'd catch myself staring at the walls of our apartment and feeling like I was in a waiting room. Waiting for what, I didn't know. The feeling would pass as soon as she came back, her hair wrapped in a towel, asking if I wanted tea before bed. "You dream too much, Matthew," she'd say if I mentioned the strange thoughts. I woke up to silence. No buzzing, no notifications, just the sound of the fan spinning overhead and Noon breathing softly beside me. My phone was dead on the nightstand, which was strange because I always charged it overnight. When I plugged it in and powered it on, there were no messages, no missed calls, nothing. "Phone broke?" Noon asked from the kitchen, not looking up from the eggs she was scrambling. There was something carefully casual about her tone, like she'd rehearsed the question. "Maybe battery is getting old? You should get new one." I scrolled through my settings, confused. Everything looked normal, but my social media apps were logged out. When I tried to log back into Facebook, it said my password was incorrect. "I didn't want anyone bothering you," she said that evening, when I found her deleting photos from my phone's gallery. She wasn't hiding it, just sitting on the couch going through my images like she was organizing a closet. "These old pictures make you sad. Better to focus on now." She was deleting photos of my life before Thailand. My house, my friends, my ex-wife, my dog who died 2 years ago. "Those are my memories," I said, but even as I said it, I felt uncertain. Did I really need pictures of my empty house in Cleveland? Of people who barely called anymore? Noon looked up at me, with those careful eyes, the ones that always seemed to see straight through, to something I didn't know I was hiding. "Don't you love me?" she asked quietly, and the question hit me like cold water. Of course I loved her. That wasn't the point, was it? She stood up and wrapped her arms around my waist, her head against my chest. "I just want us to be happy. Just us. No ghosts from before." When she looked up at me, there were tears in her eyes. Real ones. I wiped them away with my thumb and said nothing. I woke up alone, not unusual. Noon sometimes got up early to buy fresh fruit from the market, but her side of the bed was cold, made like no one had slept there at all. Her toothbrush was gone from the bathroom. The white dress from our blessing day was missing from the closet. Everything else remained exactly as it had been. Her oils on the dresser, her books on the shelf, her flip-flops by the door. One day became two became a week. I called the massage parlor, but the number was disconnected. I walked there, but it was shuttered, a for rent sign hanging crooked in the window. The woman at the 7-Eleven next door shrugged when I showed her Noon's picture. Many girls work there, they come, they go. She made it sound as natural as breathing. I filed a police report, but the officer looked at me with tired eyes and asked if any money was missing. When I said no, he shrugged. Maybe she go back to family, maybe she find new boyfriend. This happens. But it didn't feel like what happens. There had been no fight, no warning, no gradual pulling away. She'd simply evaporate, like steam. 2 weeks after she disappeared, I found an envelope slipped under our door. Inside was a single photo from our blessing day, us kneeling side by side while the monk chanted overhead, looking for all the world like a couple in love. On the back, in her careful handwriting, "You were always kind." That's what made it easy. No explanation, no goodbye, no forwarding address or phone number, just that one sentence that felt like both an apology and an axiom. I sat on our balcony holding that photo and cried for the first time since my divorce. Not angry tears, I couldn't even muster anger, just deep, bewildered grief for something I couldn't name. She hadn't stolen my money, she hadn't lied about loving me exactly, but somehow she'd taken something more valuable than cash, something I didn't even know I'd been giving away, until it was gone. Pattaya became a city of ghosts. Every street corner held a memory of her hand in mine. Every restaurant carried the echo of her laugh. I'd catch myself ordering 2 meals, setting 2 places at the table, buying ingredients for dishes I didn't know how to make. The apartment felt enormous and suffocating at the same time, full of empty spaces where her presence used to be. I tried to remember who I'd been before her, but it was like trying to recall a dream. Had I really worn those old polo shirts? Had I really spent evenings alone watching CNN and eating microwave dinners? That version of myself felt fictional, like a character in a book I'd read years ago. But this version, the one who knew the names of Thai herbs, who slept on the left side of the bed, who hummed songs in a language he didn't speak, felt fictional too. The massage parlor had been replaced by a phone repair shop. The owner, a young Thai man with tired eyes, had never heard of noon money business. "Come and go on this street," he said, not looking up from the screen he was fixing. "Girls who work massage, they move around. Bangkok, Phuket, maybe back to village, very normal." But nothing about this felt normal. How do you just disappear without leaving a trace? I visited the monk who'd blessed us, found him at a temple near the beach. He smiled kindly but spoke no English, and my Thai wasn't good enough to explain what I needed to know. Had the ceremony been real? Had I actually married her without realizing it? Was I still married to someone who no longer existed? The questions felt absurd even as I asked them. Walking back to the apartment that evening, I passed on old favorite Somtam cart. The vendor recognized me, asked where my girlfriend was. When I said she was gone, he nodded sadly. Thai girls, they have hard life. Sometimes they need to go. His sympathy felt genuine, but it didn't explain the hollow feeling in my chest, the sense that I'd been living someone else's life for months, without realizing it. I'm still in Pattaya. Different apartment now, smaller, quieter, with a view of a parking lot instead of the sea. No decorations on the walls, no plants on the balcony, no music playing while I cook simple meals for one. I've learned to live in the spaces between her absence, to navigate a life that feels both too big and too small. I buy the same soap she used during those soapy massages, coconut and lemongrass, imported from some village in the north. Not because I want to remember her, but because I want to remember how far I disappeared. How completely I let someone else redraw the boundaries of my world. The scent doesn't make me sad anymore. It makes me careful. I don't blame her. That's what surprises people when I tell this story. They expect anger, accusations of fraud or manipulation, but Noon never asked me for money, never lied about loving me, never promised me anything more than what she gave. She saw a lonely man who wanted to be taken care of, and she took care of him, until she didn't want to anymore. The crime, if there was one, was in how willingly I handed over the keys to my own life. I've made peace with not knowing why she left, or where she went. Maybe there was always an expiration date I couldn't see. Maybe I was a rest stop between one life and another. Maybe she got tired of managing someone else's happiness and decided to find her own. The not knowing used to keep me awake at night. Now it feels like the only honest part of the whole experience. Sometimes other expats ask if I'll go back to the States, back to the life I left behind. But that life feels as fictional as the one I lived with Noon. I'm building something new now, smaller, quieter, more careful. I talk to my brother on Sundays. I've made a few friends who don't require me to be anyone other than who I am in this moment. I've learned the difference between being loved and being managed, between being seen and being studied. Next time someone offers to clean your back, ask what they want to wash away.